Yes, guys. So, first of all, welcome to the podcast. This is something that both me and Finn, have wanted to do for a while. And yeah, we've spoke about for a while. So, Finn, do you want to just give everyone, well, all the listeners, all the viewers, a bit of an insight to what the podcast is about?
Yeah, so we're still not come up with a proper name yet, but we just wanted something simple. I don't know if it's for Natty Bodybuilding Show or whatever that may be. So, yeah, it does what it says on the tin. What we're wanting is an actual concise podcast about our passion. So, we don't want it to be another gym bro podcast. There's too many of those out there where people are just talking about the last week they've had in the gym and their PRs and cream of rice. We don't want that. What we want is what we're both really passionate about is talking about the UK natural bodybuilding scene, show previews, show reviews, having some coaches on, having some athletes on. And as the season progresses, this podcast will kind of expand and kind of come into its own. Because obviously appreciate while it's kind of the off season for natural shows, it's kind of going to be finding its feet. And then the long-term aim is to get to as many shows as possible in person, and then we can actually give concise reviews. What it isn't is we're not going to sit here and critique people. That's not going to be our business, because again, the judges and your coach can do that for you. So we're not going to sit here and say, "Oh, so and so's in third, but they look wank." Like that's not what we're going to do. It's going to be uplifting. So we're going to just go through like the results as they were. So who won? Do we know them, like their background kind of thing, and stuff like that. So that's the one we want, is just to talk about the natural bodybuilding scene, bring it up, expose it to more people, and have it as just kind of an almost like an ESPN, a match of the day, but for the natty bodybuilding scene.
Yeah, couldn't have put that in any better words, really. So, yeah, that's what we're about. Primarily focused on the UK natural bodybuilding scene. It's very easy for people watching this will think to stay within the natural kind of the bodybuilding bubble. But what we want is to kind of be more like heard as a voice. So some other people that are relatable to them, whether the first time competitors or have competed multiple seasons beforehand, people that go through the same experiences as they will do as natural bodybuilders. So yeah, that's what's probably best is if we give a bit of an insight into our kind of previous experiences as natural bodybuilders, and then we'll go from there. So what I'll do is I'll kick things off with myself, Finn, unless you want to go first from there. I'll just go a bit of a overview. So competed in 2021, my first competitive, I wouldn't really call it a season, more of a car crash, if anything. Quick in and out, but it like I say, I dipped my toes in. I'd say dip my toes in rather than got my feet wet. That was pretty much what 22 was about. Competed with the Two Bros Naturals at the, I think it was in October, down at Braywick Leisure Centre. So I competed with them, then qualified for place second in a novice show, or first timer show actually. Qualified for British finals, didn't participate in the British finals just because I thought the guys was bigger than me anyway. I'd just be smaller anyway, and it was just a long distance to go back to the same plot in 4 weeks, so I didn't do that. Then 2022, I thought, you know what, I can take 6 months off season from 21 to 22. How naive I was. But like I say, at the start of my competitive season, competitive journey, thought that's the way to do it. So took about 6 months off season, competed in 2022, did the BNBF Northern, and 2 weeks prior did the UK FBA Northern, where we met, actually came 4 out of 4 in the UK FBA Northern, but I just beat by better people at the time. And that's it. Did Classic as well at that time, so placed 3rd out of 6, with Craig ahead of me in 2nd, so who's in our chat and we speak to quite often, and then obviously placing 1st then, who looked phenomenal. Qualified for British finals in Classic, but that wasn't me. I love bodybuilding at the end of the day, so did BNBF Northern. 2 weeks later, placed 2nd in the lightweight category, qualified for British finals, but stomach digestive issues, and haven't actually participated in a British finals as of yet. So that's the next goal, but not just to participate. wanting to be up there in the mix and wanting to place and be up there with potentially taking a British title. So yeah, that's a bit more of an insight to me and my competitive journey. I'll let you go through yours, and then we'll go through what kind of brought us through in towards competing and getting through into natural, competing in natural bodybuilding, so to speak. So yeah, do you want to give me your credentials as a natural bodybuilder so far?
Yeah, so I've done 3 seasons, 2016, 2018, 2022. So quite a long time now in the sport, so to speak. Not as long as some, but closing on my 10-year anniversary. And so started off as a junior. I was like at the end of the juniors. So I turned 23 that year. So I was like late into the sport, which I'll go through in a little bit. Got to finals in that, just did with the UK DFBA that year, and then came back in 2018 as a novice. Did all 3 natural federations as there were back then, so UK DFBA, NPA, BMBF. Placed in all the qualifiers, and then placed in one of the finals, and then returned in 2022 in the Open and just did BMBF and UK DFBA qualifier and finals, and placed both at both qualifiers. Won one, which was a little mini goal for that year, and then placed at the BMBF finals, and unfortunately not the UK DFBA. But that was quite a good lineup, really. Very good lineup. Some other good guys didn't place that day. There was a lot of Europeans there who were very good. So for me, I kind of almost saw it as a European show rather than a British. So I kind of took that as still a win. And if I was being pedantic, like technically, if I count how many British people would have been ahead of me, I think I'd have been like 4th or 5th. So there you go. I'd have been top 5 at the British. So that's all well and good. I'll take that. And then with the next time out probably will be 2026, so like the 10-year anniversary of my first show, which will be quite nice and fun to do. And that will be with a view of not just being a finalist and placing in the lower end, is being throwing my hat in the ring and saying, look, on my day and in a given lineup, see where we land. Could I win it? That would be kind of the goal. Obviously not going in just saying, oh, I am going to definitely win, because we just don't know who's going to turn up. So that's probably where I'm at in terms of return. So 2026.
Yeah. Exciting stuff. And yeah, and mentioning the next goal. And it goes to show within natural bodybuilding, where if you're a first-time competitor or not even thought of kind of like stepping into natural bodybuilding yet, but you think it may be something which could interest you. It's a long game. It's a long process. And 3 competitive seasons over 10 years, it's not something we can do and vastly improve year to year. Obviously, there is some anomalies that do that, the likes of the David Kays over the years, Nathan Williams and Bob Waterhouse. But that's not everyone. So yeah, to make these vast improvements, we've got to spend time away in order to kind of like move up the ranks. And the first season was actually in men's physique. So that itself, from kind of taking the board shots off to then getting the legs out, so to speak, that itself, you had to make vast improvements in order to do that. So yeah, it's good to get that out there. So myself, I didn't actually brush through on my next kind of competitive plans. But it likely 25 was the initial plan after coming off the 22 season, needing more muscle at the end of the day. And with needing more condition as well, but with more muscle can allow you to get in greater condition. And also not having a car crash diet. But yeah, 2025 to 2026 potentially, we'll just see where we're at. When I feel like I've made enough improvements to compete, and when I feel as if I will be potentially competitive enough, like Finn said, we don't know who's going to show up at the end of the day, but having a good enough physique that could potentially place in British finals and win a British title, that's what we want at the end of the day. And if we get beat by better athletes, and whether they're international or not, but they're also at pro caliber, then fair enough. But we was up there with the best and being up there with the best and in contentions, that's what we want. So yeah, good wrap up through from that. Like I say, 25, 26, could share the stage again. We will just have to wait and see what we think. So what that's it. What is your kind of thoughts of natural bodybuilding? And what got you into the natural side of things rather than the assisted realm?
Yes, so I think, you know, I came out the military, like I say, in my early 20s, and wanted to focus on my training. Went to the gym a lot, but didn't really have a focus as such. I'd been training, throughout, with teenage years, but never properly. So I was like a latecomer. I always say I was a bit of a latecomer to the like actually training concisely and with a bodybuilding focus. Back then, my only really knowledge of it was basically your Ryan Terry's, your magazine guys, your bodybuilding.com, your Steve Cooks. So I only kind of really knew of men's physique. I knew of the bodybuilding, like the Phil Heath, Kai Green, that kind of thing. But obviously, I looked at those and was like, well, they're not natural. But naively, I thought like the men's physique guys were. So I thought, okay, let's maybe do one of that in a few years' time. But I knew I needed a lot more muscle. I didn't know natural bodybuilding existed until I spoke to my first and only coach, Damien Lease. I just Googled like natural bodybuilding prep coach, and he was the first one that came up. We talked, and he actually showed me Natural Federations. He showed me previous winners and previous years contests, and I was like, oh, this is good. I can actually kind of attain that. So that's how I got into it. And for me, it is just about building, self-development, the training side of things. So progression in the gym. I love training. I train exactly the same if I didn't compete. I'm not a natural in the whole even vow kind of, I don't take drugs, like looking down at people. It's not about that. It's just a personal choice. I think realistically, I'm a bit old now. I'm 31, and to go assisted, I'd want to be very competitive to kind of, for me to be worth doing that. So obviously, there's a very short timeline in your 30s before, obviously, you probably have to scale things back from an assistant's point of view. And I know some people might listen to this and say, well, they might disagree, which is fine, but that's just my opinion. So I'm just thinking, and that ship sailed. Now, if I'd got into things like a lot do now, like 19, 20, and was competing and had a good physique back then I probably would have, if I'm being truthfully honest. But like I say, I've still got a lot to grow now, so I just think, I'd rather just carry on as I am, and for me, that's what it's about. I certainly don't have the attitude of some naturals where they think they're better than assisted guys because they're doing it clean. I don't buy into that. It's a personal choice, the same as those who take.
Yeah, and that yeah, like I say, I think we're pretty much in line with why we've kind of like stuck through towards the natural realm as well. Knowing after competing within natural bodybuilding that you come off stage, and more often than not, most of us, we need more muscle. And what that means is spending more time away from stage. And as you've said, with that comes age, getting older. And the older we get, it's kind of the risk to rewards come even lesser. The risk is higher and the rewards lesser. For some people, maybe not. But like I say, it comes down to a personal choice with things on there. And it's not to say I don't look up to the freaks out there who can, the JPs and stuff. And like, it's really inspiring to see like the amount of weight that man can lift. But like I say, personal choice through for me, and wanting to be the best within your field, so to speak, and being up there within a mix for British title contender. For me, I don't know if you'd agree with this yourself, Finn, but for me, coming off as my competitive kind of career would come to an end, having multiple British titles over the years, rather than being a pro natural bodybuilder that hasn't done well in the pro ranks, would be much more impressive for me. Not to say that I don't aspire to be a pro natural bodybuilder, but consistently being one of the best amateurs in Britain time after time would, for me, be a much greater accomplishment. And now especially within the industry, whether in like IFBB pro ranks or specifically the natural bodybuilding scene, people aspire to have a pro card. But for me, it's kind of having a pro-worthy physique. And whether that means getting beaten by better amateurs that have a pro-worthy physique year after year, and not making it to that pro ranks, but being the best within your category there, then fair enough. That's that. But yeah, having a pro caliber physique, and there's plenty of amateurs we both know out there that do have pro caliber physiques, but they're not in the pro ranks as of yet. But it's just looking for that, chasing that constant improvement and that self-development. And that's what kind of bodybuilding is for the both of us, I'm sure. So do you want to give a bit more of an insight? Obviously, currently you're going through a dieting phase in a mini cut, aren't you, Finn? Plans to compete in 2026. How does that look? Have you got like some form of a timeline in place leading up towards that? Where are you at with things now? Start of the diet weight, current body weight?
Yeah, so we'll go. We were both saying just off there, like a future episode will be like more of a deep dive into our background. So I know we've just skimmed over that quite a bit, but we want to do like a full episode of our previous seasons, like the funnies, the little anecdotes, all that kind of thing. So we didn't want to spend all today just talking about, because it's like an intro. But yeah, just briefly where we're both at right now. So yeah, just doing a little diet. So essentially, it's just a tidy up, but with also a view going away in May, just on holiday. I'm not bothered. It's not to get lean. Essentially, it'd be basically to get me to a point where I'd probably start a prep from in terms of body weight and composition. So it's certainly not holiday lean by any stretch. Although compared to the normal person, it probably is relatively lean for holiday. And then that's just kind of a see. Yeah, well, I can't take my top off anyway because I am ginger. For those of you who are listening and not know it, I know visuals, so I can't take my top off on all day anyway. So it's kind of pointless being super shredded because no one can see and it doesn't get shown. And then that for me is what I kind of analyze that body weight and say, okay, where's the improvements? How much has changed since 2022? And then more than likely, we'll just head off into a growing phase until the pre-prep, the famous new in thing at the minute everyone does. But we are good, which will probably in about 18 months' time to then line up for a 2026 season. So that's where I'm at. Like I said, over halfway now. Got about 3 kilos left to lose. Already lost about 7. So. And it's easy, you did one back end of last year. It's a very easy diet. This, like, not really felt hungry, not even noticed anything. I feel good, training's good. So yeah, it's a very, very effective little tidy up.
Yeah, an effective phase for sure. And more so than not, it just kind of it gives you the perspective of the improvements that have been made, but also as we both look at things more so than not, what improvements we still need to make, and things we still need to improve on as we come down. Because yes, when body weight's higher, we have that fullness. But as things come down, is it just body fat that's showing from there or not? But yeah, ultimately it gets you, it's kind of setting up the next phase. The next phase, which will be growing and improving, prior to then going through to a pre-prep into a prep. So yeah, back end of last year, mini cut. For me, I don't like being heavy. I'm not used to being heavy, so it's a case of getting comfortable, being uncomfortable. But with time and spending more time at heavier body weights, your body and your mindset also adapts towards that. So currently now at 190 pounds, which is, I'll notice as soon as I'm above like 190 pounds, 192, as soon as I get over that, my body doesn't really want to be there. So it's just a bit about being a bit more kind of assessing things a bit better, being a bit smarter with choices, not rushing the body weight increases from there. I'm 20 weeks into a push-up where I'll be looking to get towards 200 pounds, sitting at 200 pounds for a little bit, as much as I can. which will probably be the back end of summer, July, Augusty time. So very steady up, probably about £2 every 4 weeks rate of gain a month. A kilo a month pretty much. She'll take me through to that, hold that as much as I can. And then I'll probably look to drop down to £180 once I've kind of solidified that weight. Which will actually effectively be my pre-prep diet. However, we will see where things are at. If I'm not confident with the improvements made, I will just get back into another improvement phase and repeat that process again that time next year, basically. So yeah, we'll see where we're at. I'm not rushing to compete. I know I need improvements to be made. I have no hamstring, so I need more side leg to kind of be up there and win that shot and not lose on that shot every single time. I need more there, and it's just more time and maturing that new tissue and solidifying that. So yeah, like I say, we could go in depth in towards our phases, but we just want to skim through that. Even in terms of like shows and goals, they will come to it a bit more as we get closer towards that goal. And then plans for future pods. We will look at actually going through some show reviews, attending as much shows as possible. As we both know, being there in person, things do look a lot different. Especially when we both did UKDFBA Northern. The photos from that, especially, the stage lighting was off from one of them. Nothing that, like I say, the Federation could have done. It's just one of them things. But yeah, left with probably not the best photos displaying the look that day. So yeah, probably best should we dive through into a couple of questions through from here before going through into the future plans from pods?
Yeah, because we got a few come through, and obviously, we'll dive into like what the future look like. And obviously, these questions are more of a kind of a bit of an icebreaker for the first episode, just to kind of get subjects to talk about. So we'll get in. So got one from Mark Willets, who is a British champ in his own right, really lovely bloke. And when he sent me this, I did say he'd be penciled in for a future episode, because he is a classic Mr. Britain. He won the UKDFBA Classic title in 2022, and he's prepping this year. So we could get him onto a bit of a season preview to see if he's going to defend his title, what he's looking at doing. So he's asked quite a simple question, but quite a good one. How can natural bodybuilding, federations do better and make the sport better?
Okay.
So what can we do? And I think realistically, there's so many ways to do it. Obviously, the obvious one being more exposure. We're never going to be the IFBB. We're just not. But if we have more professional shows, potentially more, incentives, prize money, sponsorships, prizes as a whole, higher quality, stuff like what we're doing, hopefully. So, there's a lot of podcasts out there that talk about the assisted shows in depth. And like I said, we want to almost be like that little match of the day, but for the natural scene. And you have that on the assisted side, but we don't really have it on the natural side. So I think there's one thing I've always said, a bit tongue in cheek, if I did win a big lottery winnings, I would happily, help fund shows and good prize money. And really good prize money for for overall winners, class winners. Because I think that's a big thing, is just kind of a reward for years of toil. Some of these pros who are great pros have probably they've won multiple pro titles, and they're probably still only 2, 3, 4 grand in total winnings, which isn't a lot. Don't get me wrong, it's nice, but for some of these legendary athletes who, like you say, probably could only afford like maybe a nice holiday from all their winnings combined. So what would you say? What would you say is the primary thing we could do as an entity to improve the sport?
Yeah, so I definitely believe like exposure is going to be the key thing, because what comes with exposure is more eyes on the actual natural bodybuilding scene, and seeing, not for the younger crowd, that there is another route to take instead of the assisted. Like I say, I'm not against that, but it doesn't have to be that. But also, like, you can create a way above average physique without the use of PEDs, and also seeing what natural bodybuilding can do and how many people there is in it and what the top of the game does look like. So yeah, more eyes on it. But what comes with that is also more companies wanting to sponsor the shows, because what comes with more sponsorships and exposure around that is ultimately having more funding to give more prize money. But yeah, like people like what we're trying to do here, talk about it, the pros of that in terms of the overall like self-development that comes through natural bodybuilding and the constant improvement. What that does for us, the lifestyle, effectively just getting more exposure on it. If I kind of nailed it down to one thing, it'd be great to get it to a point where there's constant things out. There's in terms of like the PC8 reels, having that entertainment side of things. If there was a streaming service, obviously this would be a very big if, but if they could be a streaming service where you could almost have a subscription and you would be able to watch these bodybuilding shows, I think that would be a great avenue. Ultimately, I do believe that being at a bodybuilding show is, like I say, that's going to be above that. However, I know that it's just not feasible for everyone to attend that, especially for some of the shows, some of the regional qualifiers from, like, say, Scotland or then to Ireland and so on from there. But having another avenue, if you wanted to watch that, but you wasn't able to travel, having that option. So yeah, having a streaming service, I think that would be something which could happen as well. Whether it was all of the federations in together or each of the federations from there, I think that'd be a great way to just get more eyes on it. But also having something which is easy accessible, whether they even did that and some of the funding, your actual membership went towards them putting a live stream on YouTube or so on from there. So it is free and available for everyone to watch. So it doesn't just get us competing in that, eyes on it, but it gets those from the outside who've not really heard so much of it. So new people into the game, because that's going to bring more eyes on it, not just focusing on those that are actually in natural bodybuilding, but bringing more viewers from the outside into it. Is there anything you'd add on that at all, Finn?
No, to be fair, mate, it's funny because I in your little perfect scenario of the world, that's kind of what I'd like love as like a long-term vision for. I'm not just saying for me that's like what I'm building towards, but like that would be something that I think many people involved would get in. And I think, a bit of a shout out. I know it's not UK, but it's a really good example. So the ANBF, so the Austrian Natural Bodybuilding show last year, which was like an open show. The production level was unbelievable. It was in a massive auditorium. I think there was nearly 2,000 tickets sold. Like the audience was legit, full and screaming, shouting. Maybe a few vuvuzelas, I don't know.
Drones there.
They streamed it in like proper like, oh yeah, they had like 4K streaming with like drones flying around the athletes. Like I haven't seen many IFBB pro shows with that level of production. There was tons of athletes, good prize money, pro and amateur. The standard was great, the lighting was great, and the coverage was really good. So yeah, to be fair, that's kind of I think what I'd like to see is kind of almost like a standard practice. And in one of the next questions we'll kind of get into how that could be, because obviously some federations are doing less shows now, but that means potentially the quality can improve. So that's kind of what I'd like base it off for, and I think we're more than capable in this country of producing that for sure.
Yeah, we've definitely got the tools available to improve that. It's just about putting things in place and allowing that to happen. But we know with multiple federations that we've got to have things to align, basically. Everyone's going to have different views on things, but I'm sure that's something they could all agree on would only benefit natural bodybuilding in themselves, so to speak. So yeah, through in another questions. You want to go through another one of yours?
Yeah, so I got one which kind of follows on. So Dan Fisher, who was at the Northern with us, I think. Yeah, really, really good bloke.
Moving to
he kind of asked. All right, okay, very nice, very nice. He he asked two questions, but one of them is a repeat question from another guy. So I'll just do his first one. So our thoughts on UK FBA doing fewer qualifiers, well, no qualifiers this year. So obviously UK FBA is one of the primary natural federations. I'd say there's the three main ones: WNBF UK, BNBF, and UK FBA. There are other ones as well, but again, in future episodes, we'll kind of break down the natural scene in the UK, who to compete with, pros, cons, stuff like that. Like I said, we're not affiliated with either.
Just opinions.
We've done all pretty much between us. We're just giving a neutral, unbiased look on everything. So yeah, the thing is with that, it's I know Lee quite well, who's the head of the federation. He's got a very busy career. Most may or may not know he's a serving police officer. So obviously he's got a real life outside of the federation. It doesn't pay him any money, as no federations do. None of it's their job. Competing at venues, the venue is very expensive to hire for the day. Then obviously you've got to. It's the trophies, it's the organisation, it's the staff who run it. It's a very expensive thing to run a bodybuilding federation. So I always say credit to anyone who does. And I think they've not said why. And I'm not saying it's financial reason, but I could see that being the case. I know, for example, one of the venues that they have used in the past, basically, off the back of COVID, literally doubled their price for the day. And the price that was quoted is just an unreasonable amount for any federation. Even a really big one would struggle to contend with that. So they're just doing the Natural Bodybuilding Classic, which will be our first show of the year. That's in May. And that's like a novice first-timer show, but also with a view of that's a qualifier for Worlds with the PNBA, INBA. And then they've got a novice-only show in September. And then the Open UK finals. So they've just got an Open finals, no qualifiers this year. And I think that maybe with an eye of what we were just saying in producing a better, higher quality, bigger show, and it's a show over 2 days, the finals. More international athletes. I saw Lee post about that last night, said they've got record number of internationals coming over. There's going to be some really big incentives, so potentially a bigger prize. That will probably get streamed through Natural Bodybuilding Worldwide, which is a great supporter of natural bodybuilding, I may add. So I think it's more with a view of, okay, what can we do with like two really big, high quality shows and put in more of the money that we'd spend on venues and travel and all that malarkey for several qualifiers. And just see that, like I say, without having him on, I don't want to speak for him, but that would probably be my understanding of why that is. I don't necessarily think it's a negative. Qualifiers are good for experience, and obviously it gives you a chance to, practice your peak and the famous collect data, which we all hate to hear, but it's the fashionable thing now. But I think is like a one-off Open finals. That's how it used to be when the UK FBA first started, 2011, I think. For the first couple of years, we just didn't have qualifiers because they were building up, and the WNBF is similar. So maybe that's it, a higher quality in one show, hundreds of athletes coming in, and it's just an old-fashioned shootout. Whoever turns up on the day, you haven't trialed your peak. It's best man wins, best woman wins.
Yeah, totally agree with you there. Not much could really add through on that, other than less shows. That the quality of each of the shows is going to be better, but also the experience for the athletes can then be better because there's more funding going into one show rather than it being spread across multiple shows. And then it also doesn't give some of the athletes a bit of a slightly different view in terms of if they placed, say, there's just two of them in the category, which we did see in quite a couple of the categories I think it was in the UK FBA Northern last year. The medium and the tall just had two competitors in both, just because it was spread thin. And the 5, yeah. So
No.
yeah, I believe that was the case. Yeah. I'm with you. We're right through on the other question. So yeah, so 2 minutes from there, two competitors in both the classes. So instead of that being the case, being up against more competitors and being able to see where your physique lands at against more athletes, rather than then going to the British finals and thinking, right, okay, I'm on for one here because I've come first out of two. So yeah, totally agree through on that. Another one I actually got from go through one of my questions. I got from Mark. I know we've kind of similar gone through it on his first question, but it states, how do you both feel about natural bodybuilding, the natural bodybuilding scene right now, especially in the UK? So like, how do we feel like things are going? Do we feel as if we're improving? There's more competitors coming through. Do we feel like we're getting spread through too thin? Where do you feel natural bodybuilding scene is at right now? So
Yes, so I think if we were combining all of our federations and all of the athletes and the talent we have, I think we'd rival anybody on earth. I'd say based on just results of last year, if we're being fair, I think the Germans have it on lockdown in Europe in terms of they produce very high quality athletes, very good pros. They place at very high shows. So if we're talking about just talent and show production, as we were talking about, they're probably ahead of the game. And obviously the Americans will always be good because, you know, there's 350 million of them. There's always going to be a few freaks in there. But if like you said, if we aligned, you know, had an open federation, just like a single entity where all our top pros and amateurs would go in, I think we could, you know, place our hat in the ring and say, yeah, we're the best on earth in terms of overall show production, quality of, you know, athlete, depth of talent. Because you do see some American shows where, you know, the winner looks good and then second and third, it's like you'd not place at a British first timers show, but they're like winning pro cards, and you just think, and I think they just have too many shows. And again, that could be a topic for another day. But yeah, I think it's in a great spot. It's growing. It's getting better every year. The higher caliber of people are coming through every single year. The shows are getting better. The level of athlete is getting better. And I do think it's getting more exposure as per our conversation at the start. So I think it's in a very, very strong place.
yeah, and just to add to that, like the standard within the amateur ranks is getting higher and higher. So now the standard we have to raise to in order to get towards that pro level is just becoming more and more difficult. Which is going back on the point I made previously, consistently getting British titles now, it's just going to be even harder. So it just means you have to improve your quality rather than then getting a pro card, say, maybe 10 years ago. And not to say some of the pros 10 years ago wasn't as good, but it's definitely harder with more competitors in there and the quality improving. So yeah, I think we're in a good spot, and things are definitely going in the right direction with things there. And just, yeah, I've got a last one, like a short one to end on, and we're going to do it short through on this one as well. Opinions on Eddie Abu. What would you say through on that?
This will get us going viral. We'll probably get a lot of views because he's got a long list of followers. Short answer is he's a fucking bellend, but he's an intelligent bellend because he gets people talking. Me and you were talking about him. His marketing skills are brilliant. He's probably making an absolute fortune, and fair play to him if he's doing that by being a fucking tit. He is. I don't agree. He knows himself what he's saying is stupid on a lot of subjects, but he makes a lot of money and he gets a lot of eyes on him.
Yeah, it's the best way to put it. There's plenty of tits, but there's some tits that are smarter than others, eh? So yeah, that's probably the way we're going to wrap it through on there. Eddie Abu, out with a bang.
Definitely natty.
So yeah, I appreciate you guys for listening and watching. Stay tuned for the next episodes. We'll try do this weekly, and as soon as we're at shows, yeah, we'll stick consistently with that. So yeah, that's a wrap from now.
Yep.
Yeah, we will catch you in the next one.
Like, comment, subscribe. Is that what the kids say? Is that what we say? Also, me and Luke, we probably should have said we are coaches. So if you are interested in working with either of us, drop us an old message.
That's it. Right. We will catch you in the next one, guys.